Have you ever trusted someone so much that you didn't see the warning signs right in front of your face? Sometimes the people we welcome into our families turn out to be wearing masks. And when those masks finally fall off, it can break your heart into a million pieces. This is a story about secrets and lies. About a mother who lost everything in one terrible night. And about a son who loved her so much that he planned for a day he hoped would never come. My name is Margaret, and what happened to me changed my life forever. Let me take you back to where it all started, to the phone call that turned my whole world upside down. The telephone rang at 2 in the morning. When you're 70 years old and the phone rings that late, your heart starts racing before you even pick it up. I grabbed it with shaking hands. "Hello," I said, my voice still full of sleep. It was my son Thomas. But he didn't sound like my Tommy at all. His breathing was strange, like he couldn't get enough air into his lungs. "Mom," he whispered, and I could hear the fear. "Something's happening. My arm feels weird. Everything hurts." Then I heard a crash like the phone fell on the floor. "Thomas!" I screamed into the receiver. "Thomas, answer me." But the line went quiet. I threw on my clothes faster than I thought possible and raced to the hospital in my old car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the steering wheel. When I got there, a doctor with sad eyes met me at the door. He told me Thomas had a heart attack. My beautiful boy was only 43 years old. And just like that he was gone. Standing next to me was his wife, Victoria. Her face looked shocked, but something felt off. When our eyes met, I saw something flash across her face. It looked almost like she was happy. No, I told myself. Grief makes people act strange. I pushed that thought away. "What do we do now?" I asked, tears running down my face like rivers. Victoria straightened her back and looked at me with cold eyes. "Now we handle business, Margaret," she said in a voice that had no warmth in it. "Thomas is dead. Life goes on." The way she said it made me feel like I'd been slapped. My son, her husband, was lying in that hospital, and she was talking about business. I reached out to hold her hand, thinking maybe we could comfort each other. "We'll get through this together, dear," I said, my voice breaking. She pulled her hand away like I had something nasty on mine. "Maybe," she said, looking away. "We'll see about that." I should have known right then that something bad was coming. But my heart was broken into too many pieces to see clearly. I thought she was just sad in her own way. I didn't know she was already planning to throw me away like trash. The next few days felt like walking through thick fog. I had to plan a funeral for my own child. Do you know how wrong that feels? Parents aren't supposed to bury their kids. It goes against everything natural in the world. I tried to help Victoria with everything. "I can pay for the flowers," I offered. "Or the food for after the service." She waved her hand at me like I was a fly buzzing around. "I've got it handled," she snapped. "You don't need to worry about any of it." So I stepped back. I wrote a speech about Thomas that made me cry every time I practiced it. I called all our family members, and each call felt like ripping open my heart again. I had lived with Thomas and Victoria for 3 years. After my husband died, Thomas begged me to move in. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone," he had said, hugging me tight. "We have plenty of room." I sold my little house and gave them $30,000 to help fix up their place. Thomas promised he'd pay me back someday, but I told him it was a gift. Family helps family. That's what I believed. But now, looking back, I see that Victoria never wanted me there at all. One night before the funeral, I was sitting in the small room where I slept. It used to be Thomas's office, and Victoria had let me stay there when I moved in. I was looking at old pictures of my boy. Tommy at his first day of school. Tommy graduating from college. Tommy on his wedding day, smiling so big. But as I looked around the room, I noticed something strange. All the recent photos of Thomas and me were missing. The one from last Thanksgiving where we were laughing. The one from his birthday party where he was hugging me. Someone had taken them down. Why? My stomach felt sick. Then I heard a knock on the door. Victoria stood there with her arms crossed. Her face wasn't sad anymore. It was hard and cold like stone. "We need to have a talk, Margaret," she said. The way she said my name made chills run down my back. "Of course," I said, trying to smile even though my heart was pounding. "Is everything okay?" She let out a mean little laugh. "No, everything is not okay. Thomas is dead, and now I have to deal with reality." I stood up, confused. "What do you mean, dear?" "Stop calling me dear," she hissed. "I'm not your dear anything. Here's the truth, Margaret. This house was in Thomas's name. Now it's mine. And I don't want you living here anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "What?" "But Victoria, I've been helping around the house. Cook and clean. I don't cause any trouble." Her eyes were as cold as ice in winter. "I don't care what you do. I want my space. I want my privacy. I want you gone." My legs felt weak. "But where will I go?" She shrugged her shoulders like it didn't matter at all. "That's not my problem, Margaret. You're a grown woman. Figure it out yourself." I felt tears starting to come. "Thomas would be so upset if he heard you talking like this." She stepped closer, and her voice got really quiet and mean. "Well, Thomas is dead. And what he would want doesn't matter anymore, does it?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the woman my son had loved. The woman he married. "Please," I begged. "Just give me a little time to find somewhere to stay." She shook her head. "I'm giving you until tomorrow night. That should be plenty of time to pack your stuff." "Tomorrow? But that's not enough time." "It'll have to be," she said, and walked out of the room, closing the door behind her. I sat down on the bed and cried harder than I'd cried since Thomas died. How could this be happening? My son was barely cold, and his wife was throwing me out onto the street. I didn't sleep that night at all. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering what I did wrong. Why did she hate me so much? The next day felt like the longest day of my life. I pulled out my old suitcases and started packing my clothes. Every item I folded reminded me of happier times. The sweater Thomas bought me for Christmas. The scarf my husband gave me before he died. My wedding ring, which I never took off. Everything I owned in the whole world fit into 3 suitcases and 2 boxes. That's what 70 years of life looks like when you pack it up. I kept hoping Victoria would change her mind. Maybe she'd come upstairs and say she was sorry. Maybe she'd say I could stay after all. But she never came. At exactly 6 o'clock, she appeared in my doorway again. "Time's up," she announced. I zipped up my last bag with trembling fingers. "I just need a few more minutes to carry everything to my car," I said quietly. "I'll help you," she said. But it wasn't a kind offer. She wanted to make sure I really left. We made 3 trips up and down the stairs in complete silence. My legs hurt with each step. My back ached from lifting the heavy boxes. But Victoria didn't care. She just watched me with those cold eyes. When I put the last box in my trunk, I turned to face her one more time. "Victoria, please tell me what I did wrong. Why do you hate me so much?" For just a second her mask slipped. "You want the truth, Margaret. You didn't do anything wrong. You just exist. You're in my way. You always have been. Thomas felt sorry for you, but I don't. I never did." Her words cut deeper than any knife ever could. "I see," I whispered. Then something occurred to me. Will there be a reading of Thomas's will? Maybe he left me something small to remember him by. She looked at me like I was stupid. "Why would he leave you anything? I'm his wife. Everything he had is mine now. You're just his mother." Just his mother. Those words echoed in my head as I got into my car. I was just his mother. The woman who gave birth to him. The woman who raised him. The woman who loved him with every beat of her heart. But to Victoria I was nothing. I drove away from that house without looking back. I couldn't bear to see it in my rearview mirror. I ended up at a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like old cigarettes and cleaning spray. The bed was hard. The walls were thin. I could hear people arguing in the next room. I sat on that uncomfortable bed and looked at myself in the scratched mirror. I saw an old woman with nowhere to go. A woman whose own daughter-in-law had thrown her away like garbage. That night, I cried myself to sleep, wondering if things could possibly get any worse. Days turned into weeks. I lived in that depressing motel room, watching my savings account get smaller and smaller. Every day I searched online for apartments I could afford. But everything was too expensive. I was running out of money fast, and I was running out of hope even faster. The loneliness was the hardest part. Thomas used to call me every single day. He'd tell me about his work, about funny things that happened, about his plans for the weekend. Now my phone never rang. Nobody called to check on me. I felt invisible, like I'd disappeared from the world and nobody even noticed. One morning my phone finally did ring. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. "Hello," said my voice, hopeful. "Mrs. Patterson?" A man's voice asked. "This is Robert Chen. I was your son's lawyer." I remembered Mr. Chen. He was a nice man who had helped Thomas with some papers when he bought the house. "Yes, hello," I said. "I'm calling about Thomas's will. We need to have an official reading at my office. Can you come next Thursday at 3 o'clock? My heart skipped a beat. But Victoria said there was nothing for me. Mr. Chen was quiet for a moment. "Mrs. Patterson, your name is definitely in the will. You need to be there." After we hung up, I just sat there staring at my phone. Thomas had left me something. What could it be? Maybe his father's old watch. Maybe some photographs. Whatever it was, it meant my son had been thinking of me at the end. That thought made my heart feel a tiny bit lighter. The days until Thursday crawled by so slowly. I changed my outfit 3 times that morning, wanting to look nice. Finally, I drove to Mr. Chen's office in the fancy part of town. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a shiny red car that I didn't recognize. Then Victoria stepped out of it. She was wearing an expensive black dress and sunglasses that probably cost more than my entire outfit. When she saw me, her mouth dropped open. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, walking toward me. "Mr. Chen asked me to come," I said quietly. "Why?" "There's nothing in the will for you." Just then, a fancy sports car pulled up. A man in a designer suit got out. I recognized him as Victoria's brother, James. He looked at me and frowned. "Victoria, why is she here?" he asked, jerking his thumb at me. "I have no idea," Victoria snapped. "But we're about to find out." We all walked into the building together, but Victoria and James stayed far away from me. In the waiting room, Victoria kept whispering to her brother and shooting angry looks in my direction. The secretary smiled at me kindly. "Mr. Chen will see you all now," she said. Mr. Chen's office was beautiful, with tall bookshelves and a big wooden desk. He shook all our hands and asked us to sit down. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know this is difficult." Thomas was very clear about his final wishes, and today we'll go through everything in his will. Victoria sat up straighter, a small smile on her face. She thought she knew exactly what was about to happen. "Let's begin," Mr. Chen said, opening a folder. The first part of the will was exactly what Victoria expected. Mr. Chen read out loud that Victoria would get the house, the cars, and Thomas's retirement savings. With each thing Mr. Chen listed, Victoria's smile got bigger. She even glanced over at me once with a look that said, "See? You get nothing." Her brother James was writing everything down in a little notebook, nodding with satisfaction. Then Mr. Chen paused. He cleared his throat and looked directly at me. "However," he said, "there is one more very important part of the will." The room suddenly felt very quiet. "What do you mean?" Victoria asked, her smile fading just a little. Mr. Chen picked up another paper. "Thomas added this section 4 months before he died. He was very specific about every single detail." My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Mr. Chen began to read. "To my mother, Margaret Patterson, who gave me and my wife $30,000 to fix our home and never once asked us to pay her back. Who moved in with us and made our house feel like a real family home. Who cooked us meals and took care of us with so much love. I felt tears starting to fill my eyes. Those were Thomas's words. My son's voice speaking to me one last time. I leave her the entire contents of Safety Deposit Box 742 at 2nd Street Bank, Mr. Chen continued, along with all the papers and account numbers inside it. This box and everything in it belongs only to my mother. Nobody else can open it or know what's inside. Victoria's face went from surprise to angry in about 2 seconds. "What safety deposit box?" she practically shouted. "Thomas never told me about any box." Mr. Chen stayed calm. "It appears it was something he kept private, ma'am." "Well, what's in it?" James demanded, leaning forward. "I don't know," Mr. Chen admitted. "Thomas only gave me the key and instructions. He said Mrs. Patterson should have complete access after he passed away." Victoria stood up so fast her chair almost fell over. "This is ridiculous. If there's anything valuable in that box, it should be part of the estate. It should be mine." Mr. Chen didn't look worried at all. "You have every right to challenge this in court if you wish. But I must tell you, Thomas was completely aware of what he was doing. I witnessed his signature myself. Everything was done properly and legally. I finally found my voice." "When did he do this?" I asked softly. Mr. Chen checked his notes. "March 23rd of this year." March 23rd. I remembered that day perfectly. It was right after a big argument at the house. Victoria had yelled at Thomas for spending money on my medicine. She said I should pay for my own pills. Thomas had been so quiet that night, so sad. Now I understood. He was making plans. "This is a waste of time," Victoria announced. "James, we're leaving. We'll fight this in court." But Mr. Chen held up his hand. "Before you go, there's something else. Thomas left a sealed envelope for his mother with special instructions." He slid a thick envelope across the desk to me. My hand shook as I picked it up. I could feel papers inside. "These are the bank papers and the key to the box," Mr. Chen explained. "The bank needs a few days to process everything, but Thomas wanted you to have this today." Victoria's eyes were locked on that envelope like it was made of gold. "I'm coming to the bank with you," she declared. Mr. Chen shook his head. "I'm afraid that's impossible. Bank rules are very strict. Only Mrs. Margaret Patterson can access this box. Nobody else is allowed." Victoria opened her mouth to argue, but James touched her arm. They had a quick whispered conversation. Then she turned back to me. Her angry face was suddenly replaced by a sweet, fake smile. "Margaret," she said in a sugary voice, "can we talk outside for just a minute?" We walked out into the parking lot. Victoria kept that fake smile plastered on her face. "Look," she said, trying to sound friendly. "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I was grieving and not thinking clearly when I asked you to leave. I'm sorry about that." I just stared at her, not saying anything. "Whatever is in that box," she continued, "should probably be shared between us. Don't you think? After all, I was Thomas's wife. He would want me to benefit too." I almost laughed. Just days ago she told me I would get nothing. She kicked me out of the house without a second thought. Now she wanted to share. "That's interesting," I said quietly. "Just last week you seemed very sure Thomas wouldn't leave me anything at all." Her fake smile got tighter. "I was wrong. I admit it. But we're family, Margaret. We should stick together." "Family," I repeated. "You mean like when you threw me out on the street the day after my son died?" Her mask started to crack. "Don't be difficult," she warned. "You're living in a motel with no money. You need me a lot more than I need you." I looked her right in the eyes. "Actually, Victoria, I don't think I need anything from you ever again." Her fake sweetness disappeared completely. "Listen, old woman," she hissed. "I don't know what's in that box, but it should be mine. Thomas was my husband, and everything he had belongs to me." "The lawyer just said otherwise," I replied calmly. She stepped closer, her eyes narrow and mean. "You better think very carefully about what you do next, Margaret. Have lawyers. Have money. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than living in a motel after my own son died. Yes. More difficult than being thrown out by the person who should have comforted me. She realized her threats weren't working. Fine, she spat. Go to the bank. Open your precious box. But remember this, whatever is in there, I'll find a way to get it. I always do. She stomped back to her car, James following behind her. They drove away, tires squealing. I stood there in the parking lot, holding that envelope against my chest. What had my Thomas left for me? Why had he kept it such a big secret? I had to wait 3 more days before the bank finished their paperwork. Those were the longest 3 days of my life. Barely slept. I kept thinking about what could be in that box. Old letters. Family jewelry. I told myself not to get my hopes up. Whatever it was a message from my son, and that was enough. Finally the bank called. Everything was ready. Could come anytime. I got dressed in my nicest outfit and drove to 2nd Street Bank. My hands were sweating as I parked the car. Inside, a kind woman named Mrs. Lopez was waiting for me. Mrs. Patterson, she said warmly. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your son was a wonderful man. He came here every month for years. Every month. Thomas had been visiting this box regularly. Please follow me, Mrs. Lopez said, leading me through a heavy door into the vault. The vault was cool and quiet, with walls covered in small metal doors. She walked me to box number 742. This is one of our larger boxes, she explained. Your son rented it about 6 years ago. He was always very particular about it. 6 years. Thomas had been planning this for 6 years. Mrs. Lopez used her key, and I used the key Mr. Chen had given me. The lock clicked open. She pulled out a metal box about the size of a small suitcase. Take as much time as you need, she said kindly, showing me into a private room. I'll be right outside if you need anything. Then she left me alone. I sat down at the small table and just stared at the box for a minute. My heart was pounding so hard. Finally I lifted the lid. On top of everything was a letter. It was addressed to me in Thomas's handwriting. Seeing his writing made my eyes fill with tears. I carefully unfolded the letter and began to read. Dear Mom, it started. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I'm guessing Victoria showed you exactly who she really is. Mom, I'm so sorry for what she put you through. But I can't say I'm surprised. I've known for a long time what kind of person I married. I had to stop reading for a moment because the tears were coming too fast. I wiped my eyes and kept going. You gave us $30,000 to fix the house. You always called it a gift, but I knew it was most of your savings. I always planned to pay you back, Mom. So for the past 6 years I've been taking that money and investing it for you. Every month I added more money to it. Money from my work bonuses. Money from side projects. All of it went here, into accounts I set up just for you. I looked at the papers under the letter. There were bank statements, investment reports, and account numbers. My eyes couldn't believe the numbers I was seeing. The money in these accounts isn't just your $30,000 paid back, Thomas's letter continued. It's grown over 6 years into something much bigger. It's your future, Mom. Your security. Your freedom. Nobody can ever make you feel unwanted again. Nobody can ever throw you out again. I picked up the bank statements with shaking hands. The numbers seemed impossible. Was this real? I also know Victoria has been telling people you don't contribute anything, the letter went on. What she doesn't mention is that the house payment comes automatically from my paycheck. It always has. Every single dollar you gave us for food or bills in the last 3 years, I put straight into your accounts. I saved it all for you. It's all documented, Mom. He really had. I found a folder full of papers showing every deposit, every transaction, every penny. I also saved something else, Thomas wrote. I saved all the mean messages Victoria sent about you. All her text messages to her friends. All her emails to her brother. I thought you should know the truth about her. I thought you deserved to see what I saw. I opened another folder. Inside were printed messages. Text messages from Victoria to her sister calling me horrible names. Emails to James discussing how to get rid of me. Plans they made while Thomas was still alive for after he died. Messages where she laughed about how easy it was to fool me into thinking I was unwelcome. There were dozens of them. Years' worth of messages. My son had seen all of this. He knew what his wife really was. "Mom, you deserve so much better," his letter continued. "You deserve to live somewhere beautiful where you feel wanted and loved. Take this money and build that life. Start over. Be happy. But please, Mom, please don't tell Victoria about any of this until you're somewhere safe. Promise me. I know her, and she'll try to take it from you or make your life miserable. Wait until you're safe." The letter ended with, "All my love, forever and always, your Tommy." I sat in that little room and cried. Not sad tears this time. Happy tears. Grateful tears. My son had seen everything. He had known I would need help. And he spent 6 years secretly building me a life raft for after he was gone. Mrs. Lopez helped me put all the papers in a safe folder. She explained how to access the accounts and what I needed to do next. "Your son was very smart," she said gently. "He set everything up perfectly. This money is completely yours. Nobody else can touch it." As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Victoria. "Margaret," she said in that fake sweet voice again. "I was thinking maybe we should talk. Why don't you come over for lunch today? We can discuss what you found in the box." I smiled to myself. "That sounds lovely, Victoria. I'll be there at noon." "Wonderful," she said. I could hear the greed in her voice. She thought she was going to trick me into sharing. She had no idea what was coming. I drove back to my motel room and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like a lost old woman anymore. I looked like someone who had just been given the greatest gift. Not the money. The knowledge. The knowledge that my son had loved me so much. That he had seen the truth. That he had protected me even after death. I had a few hours before lunch, so I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I went shopping. I bought myself a beautiful new dress, got my hair done at a salon, and even treated myself to a nice lunch at a cafe. When I pulled up to the house at noon, Victoria was waiting. She had set the table all fancy with flowers and nice dishes. "Margaret," she exclaimed, fake hugging me. "You look wonderful. Come in, come in." She had made my favorite soup. She was really trying hard. We sat down, and she poured me fancy juice in a crystal glass. "So," she said, trying to sound casual, "how did things go at the bank?" I took a sip of my juice. "It was very interesting." "And what was in the box?" I smiled at her. "Papers. Lots and lots of papers." She looked disappointed. "That's it. Just papers." "Well," I said slowly, "there were also some very interesting messages." Her face went a little pale. "Messages?" "Yes. Messages between you and James. Messages between you and your sister. Text messages. Emails. So many messages." I pulled out my phone where I had taken pictures of some of the worst ones. "Here's one I found particularly interesting. It's you texting your friend Sarah about me. Let me read it. Can't wait till the old hag is gone so I can turn her room into a closet. Thomas feels guilty but I don't. She's just taking up space." Victoria's face went white as paper. "Where did you get that?" "Thomas kept everything," I said calmly. "Every mean word. Every nasty comment. Every plan you made. He documented it all." She tried to grab my phone but I pulled it back. "There are dozens more," I continued. "Like this one where you and James discussed my money. Or this one where you laughed about throwing me out before Thomas was even buried. Or this really interesting one where you planned to try to take my social security checks." She couldn't speak. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish. "Thomas saw everything, Victoria. He knew exactly who you were. And he made sure I would know too." "He had no right," she finally whispered. "Those were private messages." "They were messages about his mother," I said firmly. "He had every right." She stood up, her chair scraping loudly. So what? So he left you some mean messages I sent. That doesn't change anything. You still have nothing. You're still nobody. I stood up too. Actually, that's not quite true. What do you mean? Thomas didn't just leave me messages, Victoria. He left me money. Quite a lot of money, actually. Her eyes got huge. How much? Smiled. You know what? That's really none of your business. I'm his wife. I have a right to know. You have a right to what the will says you get. And from what I remember, that was quite a lot. The house, the cars, the insurance, the retirement money. You did very well for yourself. She was shaking with anger now. You can't keep what's mine. It's not yours, I said quietly. It was never yours. It was money Thomas saved specifically for me. Because he knew the kind of wife you really were. How much? She screamed. Tell me how much. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Enough to make sure I never have to depend on anyone's fake kindness again. She followed me yelling. You're stealing from me. That money should be mine. Thomas was my husband. I turned around one last time. Yes, he was your husband. And apparently he knew you better than anyone. He knew you'd throw me out. He knew you'd be cruel. He knew you only cared about money. So he spent 6 years making absolutely sure that I would be okay. You won't get away with this, she threatened. I'll take you to court. You can try, I said calmly. But everything Thomas did was legal. The lawyer said so himself. And you know what else? I have all those messages you sent. Every mean word. Every lie. If you try to fight me in court, everyone will see exactly who you are. That stopped her. Her face went from red with anger to pale with fear. You wouldn't, she breathed. Try me, I said. And I walked out of that house for the last time. As I drove away, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. Felt free. Free from her cruelty. Free from her lies. Free to finally start living again. Thomas had given me more than money. He had given me proof that I mattered. That I was loved. That I was worth protecting. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment. It's small but beautiful, with big windows that let in lots of sunshine. I have a little garden on my balcony where I grow tomatoes. I have new friends in my building. And every morning, I wake up knowing that I'm safe. Victoria tried to challenge the will, but her lawyer told her she didn't have a case. Everything Thomas did was perfectly legal. She finally gave up. I heard she had to sell the big house because she couldn't afford it. I don't feel bad for her. She made her choices. As for me, I think about Thomas every single day. Not with sadness anymore, but with gratitude. He couldn't stop himself from dying. He couldn't protect me from Victoria's cruelty while he was alive. But he did something better. He planned ahead. He built me a safety net. He made sure that even from heaven, he was still taking care of his mom. That's what real love looks like. Not flowers or fancy words, but planning, protecting, making sure the people you love are safe, even when you're gone. My son gave me the greatest gift possible. Not money, but dignity, security, and proof that I was never, ever alone. And that is a gift I'll treasure for the rest of my days.